Hello and welcome to our first episode. We are the AM Realty Group. My name's Adriano Fiacconi and I'm here with my partner Merilyn Nunno, who's an award-winning realtor. And we're here to talk about what's going on in the market and to educate you on what you can do in the market as well. So what we want to do first is talk about market stats. And as we see in Toronto, the average sale price was $1,017,000 approximately, and it was down about 11% from last year. What are your thoughts on the market right now, and where do you see it kind of going moving forward in January?
Welcome everyone and Happy New Year. So my predictions for this upcoming year, we do have some new legislations and rules that have come into play for 2023. One of them being the vacant home tax property status declaration. A little bit about that. What that means is that all property owners in the province of Ontario are required to declare the occupancy status of their residential properties annually. So for example, for the 2022 taxation year, you're required to submit a declaration to the city by February 2nd. So my prediction is we know that there's also the ban on foreign buyers rule, which has also come into play. And we also are dealing with inflation, and we are also dealing with rising interest rates. However, the positive is that right now on the inventory in the last 3 weeks of January, we're not even into the third week, we've actually noticed there's been a pickup in our sales and the activity, not only with our actual sales, but with also the showings as well. I think that things are gonna pick up. I think that once the announcement comes into play on January the 23rd, we are expected to have another small interest rate increase that will also affect obviously affordability for the buyers, and also it also affects sellers like myself who we own, a property or several properties, and if we're in variable rates, what happens is that means every month that's extra money that we need to be able to cover the expense of our mortgage for those of us that are in the variable rate. So having said that, once you take all those factors into play, I think that we will still have a solid year. We know that it's going to take longer for properties to sell. That's where award-winning agents, not only like myself, but like Adriano, who do a lot of sales and have a vast knowledge, are able to implement strategic marketing and advertising plans and thinking outside of the box and bringing new ideas and creative ways to try to get properties sold. For example, we had a property that was in Etobicoke and it was in the $3.3 million price point. So what we did is after the 60-day marker, we did a slight adjustment, so less than $100,000. And what we did is we actually staged up the property and redid all the photos. And then within not even 2 weeks, we sold the property. So these are just things that now we have to take into consideration. If we know that it's taking the average days on market has increased and we're dealing with less pool of buyers due to affordability, we have to now just, not like we did in the peak, put up a sign and all of a sudden you underprice it and you have multiples and your property sold within a matter of days or in a week on offer date. We actually have to really work it to get top dollar and get our property sold within a reasonable time frame for our client.
Yeah. For predictions, I guess, you stated a lot there that was good, but I found that, I find obviously January and February, when you start looking year over year, right? February last year of 2022 was, the peak of the market. It was crazy. We had COVID, all-time low interest rates, right? So when you start comparing the stats, it's going to seem like it's a big discrepancy from last year. However, if you bought, your house prior to that, or even after April or May, the market hasn't been that bad. It has changed, but I do think moving forward that once this interest rate is kind of at its max and the government has stopped increasing it, I do think we're going to have a lot of buyers jumping back into the market. I think they're kind of just waiting to see, hey, how high is it going to go? And once they can figure out that they can afford it, they're going to jump in because they know the rates will probably come down long term.
Yeah, also to add to that as well, I think we'll also see towards the end of this year, so towards, let's say, November, December of 2023, we also know that we work closely with a lot of lawyers that have immigration pending files. So there's a lot of immigration that's going to be coming to Canada because we do live in a great country, and there is a lot of opportunity here in our country. Therefore, if we know that on average 400,000 to 500,000 approximately immigrants are immigrating to Canada, it's also going to drive up not only the rental market. There are people that are coming to Canada that come and they want to start business or have business and have money, and they do want to have a home for their families. So I do think that will also help contribute to our housing market and more buyers coming into the country as we need somewhere to live.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the one thing that I feel like the government's trying to kill everything right now. Obviously, like we're trying to fight inflation, but they're putting in so many rules so quickly. I almost find like even the interest rates have been brought up so quickly that we haven't really seen the effect. And then they're putting in these taxes, and now the foreign buyers, they can't, foreign buyers now there's certain stipulations that they can't buy for the first year or two. So that's going to affect a lot of people who are able to buy property. The people, I think, with a lot of money are licking their chops right now, and they're just waiting because there's going to be a lot of really good deals out there, especially for investment. But a lot of people are going to be renting. I find that the rental market, there's better quality renters now because they are making good money, but they don't have the down payment or they can't qualify. So there's a lot of good things that can happen. I do tell a lot of my clients, like if you have cash in hand, real estate right now is you can get a lot of things that 5 to 10 years from now are going to look like steals on that. So like that's where I think the market's going to go. It's going to be a little bumpy maybe these first few months, but I think near the end of this year, it's going to really, I think it's going to pick up.
I also wanted to add as well, there's also a bill that's currently being passed, and they are allowing for more approvals for garden homes in the city of Toronto, as well as laneway properties, which we just sold a big one that had laneway access as well. So I think the multi-residential homes, we're going to start seeing and becoming more like Europe, where we're seeing, more families living in a single family residential property that has multiple units. And the city is, starting to loosen up on that. And I really do think that will also help, families getting into, homes in good locations where maybe affordability at one time wasn't an option. And now all of a sudden, you take two families that are going to cohabitate, and they do have that separation if they want privacy and be able to have that, or even the option where they can, have an income. So maybe they're living in the one side, and then, they are also renting out or have that option to rent out the secondary suite to help offset some of their expenses.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, before we go on to the next topic, just quickly, like my father was an urban planner, and I do see that a lot of people want to be able to send their kids to certain schools, and they want to be in certain neighborhoods. But the reality of it is right now is that you can't afford these. So I do think you're going to see, moving forward, more houses, these bigger houses being split into smaller units so that people can live in a community and be able to go to certain schools in certain areas and make it more affordable. So I do think like that's the wave of the future in Toronto, and instead of I remember people saying it's either a condo right now or a house, and there's none of that middle ground. And I think we're going to see more of that moving forward. And those are good investment opportunities, I think, for people moving forward as well. So
I agree. In the shared listing that we have right now in the Kingsway, which is an area in Toronto, Prestige, is actually, multifamily. It was previously zoned R8, commercial, live, work by the city of Toronto. And now it's, by a single family that had their parents to take care of them because the daughter was a primary caregiver in that secondary suite. So I think that's a fantastic opportunity, and just goes to your point.
The next thing I wanted to talk about just quickly is, so this is something I heard, and I maybe want your opinion on it, but like, so buyers last year, so, had buyers, you probably dealt with a lot of buyers, and you're like, now's a good time to buy. And they're like, no, I don't want to buy right now because I don't want to compete. I don't want to be in competition. I don't want to be in multiple offers, right? They're like, I want to wait for a buyer's market. So now the prices have come down. It's more of a buyer's market. You're not competing as much. Most of the time you're not competing. You're able to go in with conditions. You're able to, be able to see stuff. And now buyers are still saying, well, now I don't want to buy because it's not the right time. Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts on buying right now?
So my thoughts are that there are some good opportunities out there. Obviously, every seller's situation is different. I don't think that it's necessarily a good idea that all sellers panic and they just drop their prices. So for example, if there's been a shift since the peak, which we know that was just not sustainability, that there was just not, it was too much. It was crazy times, right? if we know that there's been a shift from February of 2022 by approximately 15%, that property, let's call it $1 million home, that you would have had to pay that $1 million price for at, let's say, 2 or 2.5% interest rate, versus now buying, and even call it, like we said, 15%, there's been an adjustment for that price, so now you're picking it up at 850, but you're paying 6%. I always say to my client, you got to educate them, and we have to let them know that's where we come in to say, hey, even take it for a short-term mortgage, and then once 2-3 years rates start to decrease a bit, you refinance it, right? There's a lot of products out there. We work with a lot of amazing lenders in the industry, and that's where we'd be happy to assist, and guide our buyers through that, and be able to help provide them options, because some people, they just don't know about the new products that are out there, to be able to help make that choice. Now, me personally, I would rather pay that $150,000 or $200,000 less off the price, because that's going to take my payment down significantly and make my down payment less, and then pay a higher interest, because for certain cases too, there might be, even, for example, if you have a rental property, you maybe be able to offset that with expensing that interest with taxes. So there's a lot of different, I think that's where it's important to have those conversations. Everybody's situation is unique, but I do really believe that right now there is a good opportunity for buying out there. And, even for first-time buyers, hey, get into the market. And then eventually, if you look at real estate over, I always tell my buyers, it's a 5-year hold minimum. Like, if you think you're going to buy today, and I actually just said this to one of my buyers that bought with me actually this week, you think you're going to buy today, and then we're going to turn around in a year from now and flip it and expect to make, $100,000. That's not going to happen. So it's a long-term hold, and in the long run, if we look at the, the data from the past years, the real estate market does do this. So we just have to get through it, and in the long run, usually your property will appreciate, and you'll have built-in equity that increases over time.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, it's tough right now to flip in general, just with the land transfer tax and everything. It's not like it was. I think people who are buying, especially for investments right now, they need to really do their numbers. You have to put probably a little bit more down just to make the numbers work if you want to be cash flow even or positive. But I do think long-term real estate is still the way to go. You can build equity, you can refinance. There's lots of good things to do there. And I think it's very important right now too that buyers or sellers, whether you're first time or you're going through, your first time selling, now is a very important time to choose the right realtor, because there are a lot of realtors out there that maybe are new, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but you have to be able to have the tough conversations with your clients. That's what they want from a realtor, is to be able to tell them where they want to go, because if the market is trending down, you want to save them as much money as possible and continue to get them the most amount of money. So it is very crucial to work with great realtors so that you can be on the same page and they understand how the market is changing, because we're in the trenches. We see it every day. A lot of people don't. And even with a lot of articles and stuff that you read in the newspaper, they tend to be a few months behind, and it's not always indicative of what's really happening in the market that we see. There's still multiples. Like, have you seen multiples?
Yes. So in the last 2 weeks, out of the last 3 deals that we did for January so far, one of them went into multiples, and then we were showing another property in Toronto and Leaside, and by the time we locked the door and left the showing, it went into natural multiple offers. So again, shortage of inventory. So that's, I think, the main reason why we're seeing that there are multiples still are working in certain areas, again, depending if it's done right and priced just under market value. So absolutely, I think that we still have not the market that we were in, but there will always be reasons for people wanting to buy, sell, upgrade their home, downsize their home, seniors looking to get into a condo who are in a 2-story home, a couple that just got, a lot of people around the holidays, they get engaged, so now they want to get into their first condo together as newlyweds, or buy their first home because they'd like to start a family. So there's always reasons for people buying and selling. We get divorces too, and deaths, so we do estate sales. And another thing, we are also, let's address the elephant in the room too, Adriano, we are also seeing more and more power of sales coming up. So there is also the families that, unfortunately, due to the rising interest rates, they just can't, it's putting on pressure, and unfortunately, sometimes for financial reasons, you decide you have to just, liquidate as well, right?
Yeah. And that's going to bring me into my next question. But yeah, I do find like most people, if it's their primary residence, will try their best to keep the prices, to keep paying their mortgage. Especially if they have kids, they're in the school, they don't want to move. I can see maybe people who were maybe not cash flow positive in rentals and stuff like that, maybe having to liquidate, especially if they were on variable. So we'll see what happens. But the market itself is still pretty good. I mean, there's nothing, people are still holding on price and stuff. There is room to negotiate, but I find like it's not a fire sale. It's not all doom and gloom like they're saying in the newspapers or some articles yet. It really depends on how far they're going to push these interest rates. So we'll see what happens. Now, on another note, there is the 21, I heard about this today, the 21-day emergency home selling period.
I love this one.
I heard about this today, and it makes sense, but I didn't hear it in this kind of context. But basically, it's saying that from mid-February to right maybe before March break, that's a period where you can, as a seller, traditionally every year, doesn't matter good year or bad year, that where you can make maybe 5 to 10% more on your property just because of the time. I find like a lot of realtors will say, hey, you want to sell in the winter? No, it's not a good time. Wait till the spring. But what ends up happening is that there's lack of inventory. Like right now you're looking and there's not much good quality stuff out there. And that's probably going to even go into February. And if you're thinking of selling, this might be the time to do that because you can really get more money for your house, especially if it's done and looking nice because there's not much competition out there. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Is that what you're seeing right now?
I'd say that we definitely do see things pick up a bit in February because there's also sellers right now that are just on the fence, what's going to happen. A lot of uncertainty out there, especially with continuing rising interest rates. So that brings uncertainty to the consumer. If it's set up properly and your home shows well, you're in goes back to the saying location, location, location. If you're in a great location, that's where we're seeing the 2 deals that we did in the last week. They were both in excellent locations with some inventory, although we were able to execute and put our inventory out there, so our product, our listing, and showcase it where it stands out. So right now, if you have a listing and you're trying to sell your home and you just want to just throw it out there and just kind of test the market, it's not really that time. I think it's more so if you're you really want to sell, you're serious about it, and you do certain things to make the property, like right now where all our properties are getting, let's say, cleaned, and we're staging them, or we're in some cases there are sellers that their home, you walk in and it looks like a model home. So those are the ones that are really standing out. And again, obviously it's usually price related as well. So if we're pricing it right around market value, then they are selling a lot faster. If you're going to sit on the higher side, then again, this goes back to you're just going to fall into that category of the above average days on market.
And you don't really want to do that. I mean, people don't really understand, but the longer your house sits on the market, the more buyers and buyers agents feel that they can negotiate a price on you. And now, you have to look at the days on the market. Obviously, they're a lot higher than they were last year at this time. But pricing needs to be done properly, because the longer you're out there, it's not a good thing. There are sellers that are like, no, we're getting showings, just keep it. But from our experience, you realize that the offers tend to usually get worse as your days on the market get longer. So that's just something to think about. But back to the point of this 21-day emergency selling period, I do find that most, at least in the last 4 or 5 years, most of the gains for the year were done in February and March. A lot of when you see 15-20% increases, they happen like in the beginning of the year, and then they kind of tail off, and then they might pick up again in September. So that's something cool that I didn't know. But if someone is thinking of selling, maybe you don't wait till after the March break. Maybe you put it on now. It really depends on the months of inventory in your neighborhood, I guess, and your competition. But could be the potential to make some money, or more money than you might later on in the year.
Yeah, it's a really cool stat, and it's interesting to see that during the months of February and March that you will potentially get more, and that's also for the reasons that we discussed. A lot more buyers are getting serious about getting out there and looking and buying.
I think you touched on this earlier when we first were talking, but like the vacant home buyers tax. I mean, that's come in. I mean, you specified some of the stipulations around it, but maybe just let's talk, in general about it. Like, obviously people want, more. I guess the reason why they put this in, they don't want people buying houses and just having them sit there because there's a lack of inventory.
Just to add to that too, you are allowed to have it for less than a 6-month period vacant. You just need to make a declaration whether, you have the property rented out or whether or not you are residing in the property. Obviously, there's always exemptions for certain rules as well, in cases where it might be a divorce case, or if it's an estate sale and the death occurred. So there are exemptions to the new vacant home tax that has come into effect, right?
Yeah, but I mean, let's call a spade here. Like, I talked to some of my good mortgage broker friends and stuff like that. They were even saying with these foreign buyer taxes and all this kind of stuff, they say they make up a very small percent of the market. Maybe like 5% of the market is actually foreign buyers. Like, do you think this tax is going to make a big difference? Because, when I look at certain areas like the Kingsway, or I look at, certain areas of Etobicoke, houses just don't come up. Like, it doesn't matter what it just, there's older people there. They don't need to move.
They don't move as often.
They don't move as often.
Right.
And it's just, there's lack of inventory in certain areas. I mean, is this tax going to really now bring all these houses up on the market? Like, I don't know if this is going to fix the problem. What do you think?
My thoughts are, I think there's more to it. So I think that also our government has implemented the tax because during COVID, we just had the 2 years of COVID where there was a lot of money being given out, and therefore they're looking for ways to collect the money now. Yeah. So I don't think it's only just towards, to affect the housing market. I think that's one of the reasons. I also think there are other reasons why they're doing that as well, because as we all know, especially in Vancouver, right, in the province, there were a lot of condos that were vacant, and there were foreign buyers, in some cases, not in all, but that were just trying to get their money out of, their country to park their money somewhere. And so I think there's variable factors, and I do agree that I do feel that's only a small percentage of the market, so it's not going to make a significant difference.
January 25th, you might have said the 23rd, but anyways, just for clarification, I think it's the 25th of January, 10 a.m., they're going to announce something. What do you think there's going to be first of all, do you think they're going to raise the rates? And secondly, if they do, what do you think?
My prediction is for the next announcement, there will be a small increase, and I'm going to say that it's probably going to just be 0.25%.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking that too, but I do think that they may raise it another quarter as well. I think we got like 0.5 to go, whether they do it all in one shot or not, but I think after that, it'll kind of tame off, and I think you're going to see a lot of buyers jump back into the market at that point. Yeah, and how do you think, like, just quickly before we wrap up here, how do you think that, do you think that little 0.25% of an increase is going to make a big difference at this point, or have we seen like the brunt of it, and now this is just kind of, we're just trying to settle at a point here? Yeah.
I mean, who are we trying to kid? It always affects, right? If you tell me that I have now an extra, even $100 a month that I have to come up with after tax money, it would be, not right for us to say that, oh, it makes no difference. It does, because for the average, individual or, family, that extra 100, or, in some cases now we're talking thousands a month, depending on the amount. Yeah. It does make a difference, because that's now possibly their luxury spending money. So that means less, bringing your movies to the kids, less dining out. Maybe you don't have that vacation that you take every, year or every couple of months. So it will definitely impact. Now, again, it's not just the 0.25% increase. It's all the last 6-7 increases that we've had collectively. I think that does make a difference.
That's so quickly. Like, you can't even a 3% increase. Like, I don't think there's been enough time. It's been 7 months to really see the effects of it. And, and obviously, just to be clear, we're talking about variable rates here. Fixed rates, most of the people who are in fixed rates, they're fine until they have to renew again. So, I mean, most people aren't going to feel the brunt of this. It's more the variable rates. But yeah, I just think everything has been done really just to kill the economy, to bring down inflation. So the variable rate is tough. But I think now, if I had to buy a property, I probably would take a variable rate, because I don't think it's going to go much higher. I think the benefit of the rate coming down, you're probably at a better chance for the next few years that the rates will come down. Right. So just a thought now.
So here's a question for you.
Sure.
I'll say that all 3 of my properties are all in variables. How about yourself?
Yeah, so I for the longest time I felt like I was wrong, but I have a few of my properties are fixed. I have one that's variable and I kind of forgot about it. I should have locked in, and I have seen a significant difference in profit. I mean, traditionally they always tell you variable is the best way to
Right,
go.
the way to go.
I mean, now you're in a point where, hey, we've at all-time low variable rates. I mean, people were getting under 2%, maybe under 1.5% at certain times. So hey, the benefit there that you get, you know, now you're paying for it a little bit. It's going to work out in the end. But right now, if you were, you know, if you owned a property or especially a rental property and you were kind of breaking even or you're putting in money, like last year, a couple $100, those are the type of people that might be in trouble right now. And that those are the types of properties that maybe you could buy and get a little bit of a deal on because they want to get out, or assignments, that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So,
yeah, that's another thing too. We are seeing more than ever a lot more assignment sales come up. So that just justifies and helps solidify the answer that I just gave, that there are people that unfortunately are going to be in a difficult situation trying to close on the assignment sale. So we are seeing a lot more assignment sales come up.
Basically, I think that's it for our first ever podcast. I mean,
Yes.
I think that's great. I mean, we want to do this monthly. The reason for that is to keep everyone updated on what's going on in the market, what's going in the trenches, because we see it every day. We're with buyers, we're with sellers, and we want to educate you on what is going on and how to make good real estate moves, because we do think that real estate is the future and a great way to build wealth and equity over time.
I agree, and we are very excited and looking forward to providing relevant content and updated information, and clarifying any questions and concerns and uncertainty that is out there right now in the public.
Till next month, we'll see you soon.